Welcome to another coding tutorial, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how to create this piece with a bunch of falling letters and a secret message. We're going to start by figuring out how to display a piece of text on the canvas. So first, we're going to use a function called text. And text can take in a total of 3 arguments. The first one is the piece of text that you want to display. So how about we start with just a letter A? And then the second and the third arguments are the x and y coordinate of the bottom left corner of the bounding box of that string of text. So how about we put in width divided by 2 and then height divided by 2. Alright, so now we have the letter A display in the middle of the canvas. I'm also going to draw an ellipse at the same location, width divided by 2 and height divided by 2 of the size 10, just to show you that it is being displayed at the bottom left corner here. Now, how about we increase the size? And we can do that using a function called text size. And how about we do a size of 50? Alright, and now what if I want it to actually be displaying in the middle of this bounding box here? What I can do is that I can use a function called text aligned, and if you provide in just one argument, center, then it is only moving the x position, right? And then if I provide another argument, then now it is being displayed in the middle of the bounding box of that piece of string. Next, we want to display a string of text, one letter on top of each other. So I'm going to start by creating a string called MSG for message, and it is going to be an empty array. And then I'm going to create a variable called num. Let's set it to 10, and that is going to be the number of letters that is going to be inside the MSG array. Right, so inside setup, we're going to use a for loop that goes from I equals to 0 to I less than num, I plus plus, and then we're going to add in some letters inside MSG. Let's say that we just write A here. So let's try to print MSG. So now we have an array of size 10 with the letter A's in each of the locations. I actually want to have randomized letters inside this array. So I'm going to create another array called alphabets, and this array is going to contain all the lowercase letters. Alright, and then next, instead of putting in A here, I'm going to put in a random letter inside this alphabets array, and I can do that using the function random, and then you can just put in the name of the array. So now, as you can see here, we have an array of size 10, but now each location has randomized letter. Perfect. Next, what we're going to do is that we're going to create a variable. Let's call it secret MSG, and it is going to be a string. How about we say happy birthday? And what I want to do is that I want to add this secret message inside the MSG array. But because this is a string, what we want to do next is that we want to have an array that contains all the letters inside this secret message. And we can do that using a method called split, which is a method inside an array class. So what we're going to do is that we're going to create another variable called secret MSG array. And then we're going to put in the name of the string. So secret MSG dot split. And then inside here, we need to tell it how to divide this string up. So what is the separator? And the separator that we need is an empty string. So we want to separate it by each of these letters here. So if we do this and we print out secret MSG array, then what we get is an array with all the letters from this secret message, happy birthday. Great. What we want to do next is that we want to add the letters inside the secret message array inside the MSG array, right? So we're going to actually first write a for loop that goes from I equals to 0 to I equals to the length of the secret message array. I++, and then we're going to use a method called push, which is a method inside the array class. And push basically pushes an object, or in this case, a string or a letter inside the MSG array, right? So for example, I want to push in secret message array at index I, right? And then how about we just print out what MSG now become? All right, so now it is the length of 24 because we have num equals to 10, and then happy birthday has a total of 14 letters plus this empty space, right? So this is fine, but how I want to approach this is that I want to actually draw this out such that the first letter here is at the very bottom and everything else is on top. So let me show you what I mean. So if I were to use a for loop that goes from I equals to 0 to I less than msg.length, I++, and then we're going to use the text function again. Instead of a here, it's going to be msg of I. It's going to be the x location of width divided by 2. How about I just do x here, width divided by 2, all right? But if I do y equals to height divided by 2, what you would expect is that all the letters are on top of each other, and that's not what we want. So let's say that we want to start it at height, and then we want to subtract it by I times size, right? And the size right now is 50, so let's also replace this with a variable called size. And how about we set it at 20? All right, let's just try to run that first. Okay, so it starts here and then it goes up. Actually, let's make this 5. Let's make this 15. All right, so as you can see here, because each letter is being drawn on top of each other, now the word happy birthday is actually backwards, and that's not what we want. What we want is so that it actually is right side up. So instead of using push, what I can use is a function called splice. And splice is a method inside the array class, and it can take in arguments in multiple ways. The way that we're going to use it is that the first argument is going to be an index at which we want to push in a letter. And the index that I want to add, let's say that I want to add it at index equals to 1. And then the second argument is the number of stuff inside that array that I want to remove, but I don't want to remove anything, so I'm just going to put in 0. And then now, the third argument is going to be the string or a piece of object or whatever it is. In our case, it's a string of letter, right, that we want to add in. So by doing this, it's basically adding in secret MSG array at index I at location index equals to 1. So let's try that. So as you can see here, now it is right side up, happy birthday. But why is it in this case, right? So it actually add in, if I just put in 0 here. Instead of using a for loop, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to add it more manually. So I want to add secret MSG array of 0. So that's the letter H, right? So now H is being added here. And then now I want to add one more. Let's do of index 1. Now the letter A is being added after the letter H at index equals to 1. And so that's why if I were to use this for loop here, we can solve the issue of having it being displayed right side up. So there are actually many different ways that you can approach this. The reason that I want to approach it this way is because I want to have the most bottom letter here to be the anchor point at which I move the piece of string or this falling letters around. All right, so next we're going to also create a variable called y0. This is the anchor point basically. And how about we set the anchor point to, actually, let's do it here inside draw. I want to set the anchor point to my mouse Y location. And then now, instead of height here, it will be y0. Let's click run. All right, so as you can see here, now the most bottom is attached to my mouse Y location. Great. So now I want to move this string of text down. So I'm going to create another variable called dy, and dy, let's set it equals to 1. And dy is going to be the rate of change of basically the speed at which this string is going to fall. And so now instead of setting it at mouse Y here, we're going to, inside setup, initialize it at, how about height divided by 2. And then now every time the draw loop is called, we just increment it by dy. And how about I put this at the bottom here? All right. Two things that I want to do before we move forward. The first thing is that I actually want to randomize this location here at which we add the secret message. How about we set a variable called LOC for location, and it should be some number between 0 to num-1, right? So how about we do random of num, but this is going to give us a decimal value. So we also want to use a function called floor so that we can get an integer. And then we just put in lock here. I'm going to comment this out just to show you that happy birthday could be at many different locations. All right, and then now the second thing that I want to do is that I want to change the font. So to do that, we're going to come to this arrow here, click the plus sign, and then let's do create folder. Call it fonts, and then inside this folder, we're going to come to this arrow here and then do upload file. And then this is where you're gonna drag and drop your font file inside. Once your font is uploaded, what you want to do is that you want to create a variable called font, and then create another function called preload. This is going to allow us to preload the font before the program is run. So I'm going to set font to another function called load font. Inside here, we're going to put in where the font is. In my case, it's in the folder called fonts, and the file is called outfit-black.ttf. So we also need to put in a quotation mark and then put in fonts /outfit-black.ttf. Right, let's click run. All right, so the font is uploaded, but it hasn't been applied here, and that is because we also need to put in another function called text font. Then we're going to put in font. There you go. Perfect. All right, so I'm going to put all of this inside a class. So I'm going to come to this arrow here, click the plus sign, and then click create file. And then I'm going to name this file rain.js. And then before we start writing a class, go to index.html, come to this line of code here, copy and paste, and then make sure that you change the name of this file to the name of your new file. In my case, it's rain.js, and this is how you integrate a new JavaScript file into your program. All right, so go to rain.js. All right, so now we're ready to write class. So start with the word class. Let's call it rain, and then we're going to start with a constructor function. Inside the constructor function, what do we need? So here, we need the starting while location, the speed, and also this message string. So let's just copy this. All right, and then this will be this dot y. We can just do this dot y, and then this can be this dot dy. And then y will be set to, actually, y will be set to, let's just do height for now. And then we're gonna set x to be equals to a parameter x here. And then we're gonna create another method called display. And what we need is, we need all of this. All right, and then size is global, font is global. We've also forgot this .msg, which is an empty array. And then we actually need to create this whole thing before we can display anything. All right, so let's see. So we have the for loop, right? And this for loop basically randomizes the letters that are going to be inside this MSG array. And then we have the location here, num. How about we also set num as a variable inside this class so that we can actually randomize it. So this is going to be this.num, this.num, and then secret message is fine. MSG will be this.msg, and then this.y will be height divided by 2. All right, so we don't need this anymore because we set it here. We can just start with height divided by 2 as well. And then now for display, all we need to do is we need to go through this.msg.length, and then we're going to display it at x. X will be this.x, right? And then this will be this.y minus I times size. Okay, I think that should be it. So let's just try to create one piece of the rain object. So let R, and then inside here R is going to be new rain, and then we need what? We need just X, so let's put width divided by 2, and we just do r.display. All right, it works. Okay, great. And then next, this thing that I commented out is going to be in a new method. Let's call it update. All right, so it's going to be actually this.y plus this.dy. And then inside here, we need to call it as well, r.update. Ta-da! All right. Next, we're going to create a bunch of these rain objects, right? So how about we start with an array called rain, and then let's set another variable called calls for column. But columns will be depending on the size, which we already have here. So in size setup, I'm going to calculate calls to be width divided by size. And then we're going to use a for loop to go from I equals to 0 to I less than calls, I plus plus. And then we're going to put in rain of I to be a new rain object. But instead of X being width divided by 2, we're going to set X to be equals to I times size. Let's try that. Oh, before we click run, we also need to write a for loop in here. And then it is going to be rain of I dot update, and then rain of I dot display. Great. There are a few things that I still want to tweak, but it is working as intended. So what do I want to tweak first? Actually, let's see. As you can see here, it's not offsetted right. So we actually also want to add it by size divided by 2. All right. And as you can see here, it actually is not perfect. And that is because of the size 15 is not evenly divided by the size width. So if I were to do, let's say 20, then now it is perfectly inside this canvas. All right, so the next thing that we want to do is that we want to come back to rain here. Instead of setting dy to be a constant 1, how about we randomize it between 1 and 3, and then the number of the randomized letters, instead of just setting it to 10, we can also randomize between 10 and 30. All right, that looks a bit better. But then now, as you can see, once it goes beyond the canvas, then it's gone. So we actually want to have it loop through the canvas. So we need to write another method, which I'm going to call restart. And when do we want to restart? We want to restart it when the last letter, which is the one at the very top, actually moves past the height. So the very top letter is the one that is the last in the piece of the string. So first, how about we start by writing a conditional statement that says if y is greater than height, right? But what is y? So y is going to be this dot y. But this dot y is the y location of the very first letter, which is the very bottom one. So we need to also subtract it by this dot msg dot length, right, times size. But actually this dot msg dot length is actually the location of the very last one plus one more, right? So it actually going to give us a little bit of a buffer. So the very last one will move off the screen a little bit before this if statement is being called. Right, so once this is greater than height, then we want to set this dot y to be at, how about, let's do -10, so that we make sure that it starts a little bit off the screen. So let's try that. Okay, we also want to, actually, let's call restart inside sketch.js here, reign of I dot restart. All right, so as you can see here, once it moves past the screen, then it comes back. Perfect, so it works and we're pretty much done, but I'm going to add more features to make it more interesting. So what I'm gonna do is inside sketch.js, how about inside draw here, let's draw an ellipse and we're gonna put it at mouse X and mouse Y location and give it a size of 100 by 100. All right, and then I also want to set the stroke to be black and stroke weight to be 3, and then let's fill it with the color yellow. Ooh, we're gonna go to rain.js and then inside this display here, we're gonna set fill to be black and then we're gonna do no stroke. All right, so that looks kind of nice. What if we make it interactive? So how about we use an if statement that says if mouse is pressed, and mouse is pressed is a built-in Boolean variable that returns true when the mouse is pressed and return false when it is not. What if when the mouse is pressed, we change the size of the circle here? So how about I put this as s.s and then let's set s to be equals to 100. Actually, let's do ellipse size and ellipse size. And then we would just say that when mouse is pressed, then ellipse size will be 100, then else it will be 50. So let's start it at 50. Press, unpress, press, unpress. Great. And then I also want to change the background color. How about we set BG for background color to be black when pressed and white when it is not, and we put in BG here and we're gonna initialize it as white. BG will be white. So now when I press it, that's kind of cool, right? It's like a secret message. And what if we say that when I press the mouse, when this circle is bigger, what I want to do is that I want the speed to be a little bit slower. All right, so what we want to do is that we want to come back here and then we want to actually change this .dy, right? So we're gonna give a parameter here as dy and this .dy will be equals to dy, and yeah, so inside sketch here, we're going to set dy, and then dy will be a random value between 1 and 3. Actually, let's do it a little bit faster, between 2 and 4. And then, so when the mouse is pressed, I want it to go slower. So let's just do 1. So random of 1 will be between 0 and 0.9999. And then dy will be back between 2 and 4. And then now we just need to put in this value dy as an argument inside update here. Alright, so it's slower. Alright. Cool. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Yay. Alright, before I go, let's add one additional feature. So, how about we change the secret message to I love you? And then, instead of just a circle, let's make a heart. So, how do we make a heart? So instead of this ellipse function, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to this website here called mathworld.wolfram.com/heartcurve.html. There's a bunch of heart equations, and I actually have done a few tutorials where I use heart equations from this website. We're going to be using these parametric equations where x and y is a function of t. So x equals to 16 sine cube of 3, and then y equals to 13 cosine of t minus 5 cosine of 2t minus 2 times cosine of 3t minus cosine of 4t. All right, and how we are going to do this is that we're going to use a for loop. And this for loop will go from I equals to 0 to I less than 2 pi actually. And then I plus plus. And then we're going to set x and y equals to what we just saw. All right, and then now what we need is that we need a vertex function. And vertex will draw out the points at x and y location. And to use a vertex function, you also need two additional function called begin shape and end shape for it to draw out these points. So let's click run. You can see it's over here, right? So what we also want to do is that we want it to move based on where the mouse is. So we're going to use a function called translate. We're going to translate it by mouse x and mouse y. And if I do that, you can see that first you can see that it doesn't look like a heart. And that is because this increment, which goes up by 1, is a little bit too rough. So we want to actually increase it by, how about 0.05? Let's try that. All right, and it is upside down. So we also want to multiply the y coordinates by -1 because for computer graphics, y is positive, like going down, right? So we need to flip it. Maybe I need to, I multiply it to the vertex function, and I actually want to multiply it here, -1 times. All right, so now it's right side up. So two things that we need to fix. The first thing is we want to, as you can see here, right? All the letters move with the heart. So we want to isolate it. So we need push and pop whenever we use transformation function if we want it to go back to the default values before you start calling other functions. So this way, this translate is only being done within the context of this push and pop function. So now, the locations at which all of these strings are drawn has nothing to do with the location inside here. And then the last thing is that we want to change, how about the size of this heart? So we can multiply this whole equation by a certain radius. So let's do r, and then let's actually put it in the front here. And then we also want to multiply it here as well. And do we already have r? So we have ellipse size. So how about I change ellipse size here? Okay, just leave it there, and then I'm gonna set r to be equals to, let's do 10. See if that's too big or not. All right, that is quite big. So let's do just 3. Okay, now when I click it, it changes the colors, but I want to also change the size. So how about inside the conditional statement, which is here, I want to change here. I'm gonna comment this out and then set R to be close to 6, R to be close to 3 here. Ta-da! You see, I love you. All right, so let's change the colors, which is the last piece. So how about I set the background color to be this color. When it's pressed, it's a nice green color. And then I want to also change the color of the heart. So I'm going to do, instead of filling it here with the color yellow, I'm going to put that when I click it, it's going to be this pink color. And then when I release the mouse, it's going to be this color. All right, click, click. I want the stroke size to be a little bit thicker at 5. Right, I'm done after this. Oh, the last piece is the starting point. Right now it starts at height divided by 2, and I don't like that. So let's go to rain.js and then randomize this. So let's randomize it at, how about height? All right, so now you get this nice secret message that you can make. And I hope that you like this one and give it a try.